In this film, we can say for sure that the Ripple SEC cases are over for the first time in 3 years. I'm going to talk about what just happened because it came as a total surprise and will have huge effects on Ripple and XRP in the future. I'm going to say whether this is good or bad. Some people are saying that this might be an SEC trick. We're going to talk about that and everything else you need to know about what just happened because it's crazy. Just so you know, a big part of this case was meant to go to court later this year. It would have been about 6 months away. That would mean that the SEC would be putting Brad Garlinghouse and Chris Larsen on trial to find out if they knew they were selling a security when they sold their XRP. Have you been watching this channel? If so, you know that I said the SEC had no chance at all of winning this case. Also, if XRP wasn't a security, how could Brad and Chris have known they were selling it? It didn't make sense to charge them. A lot of smart lawyers in this area said that the SEC was basically rooming their own case by going to court with Brad and Chris. Having said all of that, the SEC has made a lot of really bad choices in this case over the last 3 years. So it was very hard to guess that they would actually make a smart choice. The SEC did, though, and dropped the charges against Brad and Chris. So there is no trial. This case is pretty much stuck in a loop because of that. In this case, there's nothing left. All charges against Brad and Chris have been dropped by the SEC. Of course, this is very exciting because this case is over for the first time in 3 years. We know what took place. Ripple did some sales of securities to banks, but most of their sales were not securities. A small part of the XRP Ripple could be considered a securities deal. But most importantly, XRP itself wasn't a security. Every time Brad and Chris sold XRP, they weren't breaking the law. And 98% of the time, neither was Ripple. In other words, Ripple's sale of XRP was basically the only time it was a securities deal. Finally, for the first time in a very long time, this thing is over, which is a huge win indeed. Eleanor Tarek confirmed everything I just said. There will be no trial in April of next year. It's getting a lot of attention right now, including from the Wall Street Journal. Taking in what just happened, it's clear that this is very exciting. It's getting attention from big news outlets. I want to show you what Brad and Stuart Alderati said because I believe they said some very strong things. But first, I want to quickly go over the bad things that could happen because of this. This is something I think you should all know, even though I don't think it's that bad. The SEC can still file an appeal in this case. Okay, I know it sounds crazy, but the SEC can really take this case to the Second Circuit. They had to hold off until the case was over. The case against Brad and Chris is now over since the charges against them were dropped. They can now appeal the whole thing. I'm sure the SEC would lose if they did this. There's nothing new that the SEC can add to this case, and they have no proof that anyone did anything wrong. The SEC put together very weak proof. In this whole case, they didn't really show anything, and I think we can all agree that we paid close attention to it. Not a single thing we saw made us worry about Ripple the company, Brad Garlinghouse, or Chris Larsen. I don't think there's any reason to be worried if the SEC does take this to court. I believe it's only a matter of time before we win for good. I really don't think the SEC would do this, though. The SEC would only do that now if they wanted to hurt Ripple and make him look bad one last time. Still, if that was the SEC's real goal, they would have just gone to court. In order to punish Ripple and drag them through the mud, they would have kept this going for a longer time. The court case would last for 1.5 years. It's clear that the SEC's main goal isn't just to keep this going for as long as possible. They're also trying to clean things up. It was clear to them that their case didn't make sense. They knew for sure that they were going to lose the rest of the case, and it was beginning to look bad for the agency. That's the reason Brad and Chris weren't put on trial. Will the SEC just file an appeal to move this on to the next round? Second circle, even though Chris, Brad, and Ripple were not there. For you guys, I think they would do it, but I'm not sure if they can do it right now. They are quickly losing respect, and Ripple is not the company they want to go up against. The SEC just lost a huge amount of money. The SEC can't really take the fight that Ripple has been putting up every step of the way. What takes place will be very interesting to watch. I will look at the case in a good way. Guys, if the SEC is going to appeal this case in the next 2 weeks, they would have done it after the trial too. The appeal could happen now or in a year and a half. I personally would rather have it now and be done with it. There's just a chance we might not get to see it. Before we hear what Stuart Alderati and Brad had to say about this, one last thing. In order to drop these charges against Brad and Chris, Ripple and the SEC had to agree on one thing. Wow, this is very interesting. It's possible that when the SEC told Ripple, okay, we need to drop these charges against you and Chris because we're not going to win this case. It's terrible for the service. We need to leave this place. Most likely, Ripple could have said only if you promised not to take the case to the Second Circuit. That's something that could have happened since Ripple had to agree to drop the case against Brad and Chris. You need to understand that Ripple knows they will win this case in every way. They also knew Brad and Chris would win. Most likely, it wasn't even that much of a worry for them. By letting the SEC out of this, they were giving the SEC something. Maybe Ripple got something in return, like the SEC agreeing not to take the whole case to the second court for review. That's something I think is possible, but we'll have to wait and see how things go. From my point of view, this case is finally over for the first time in 3 years. We no longer need to worry about it. The SEC lost in every way. They never even came close to showing anything bad about Ripple or XRP. Because of this, I think this is great. In the end, we learned that the SEC is all talk and no action, no matter what tricks it plans to pull in the future. They don't do anything at all. They pull us through the mud. Even though they make us wait, they never really offer anything useful. It doesn't bother me that they might appeal, because I know they'll lose. Yes, I think getting rid of trial is a good thing. Without it, we would have had to go through another year and a half of this nonsense. In the end, we want Ripple to be able to move their business inside the United States and use their cutting-edge technology to take over the banking system. This helps us get there faster. For the last part of this video, I want to show you what Stuart Alderati and Brad actually said about this. I think you guys will really want to hear what they had to say. Stuart Alderati said that the SEC made a big mistake when they went after Brad and Chris directly. Now they've given up and dropped all charges against our executives. It's not a settlement. It's a give-up from the SEC. Stuart Alderati made a really good point there, and I'd like to read you what Brad had to say. He said that today was even better. 3 for Ripple and 0 for SEC. Seriously, the SEC went after Chris and me even though there were no claims of fraud or misrepresentation. They were determined to ruin us personally and the company that many people have worked hard to build over a decade. While meeting with people like Sam Bankman-Fried in secret, the SEC kept his eye off the ball and failed over and over to protect U.S. companies and consumers. How many millions of dollars did the government waste? It feels good to finally be right. I will say this, I cannot believe that some people in the cryptocurrency world were happy for the SEC when the case against Ripple, Brad, and Chris was dropped. I'm so embarrassed about it. I'll never forget those people. Guys, today is proof that it feels like the millionth time in a row for the 3rd time in a row. People who use XRP have been around since the beginning. We did a great job. We knew the SEC's charges were false. We were sure that XRP would come out on top in this. At the same time, we knew that Ripple was a good company that wanted to make the world a better place and would never break the law. Guys, today should show you all that our town is by far one of the smartest in the world. We are different from everyone else. We thought XRP was a fake coin when everyone else said we would never win this case. It will never get through this. We stood our ground, told them they were wrong, and didn't change our minds during the whole thing. We have finally been proven right. The SEC had such a weak case that they had to pretty much give up. Now, unless the SEC files a crazy appeal, which we hope doesn't happen, they need to tie up some loose ends. Guys, the case is over, and Ripple can now focus on growing their business in the US. They are the only coin company whose digital asset has been ruled by the courts not to be a security, so they can start building their brand. Guys, today is a big day for all of us. Today is a huge day for Ripple. Today is a huge day for XRP. Brad and Chris are having a great day. I can't wait to make this movie. It's clear that we've been waiting for this for a very long time. That's why I hope everyone can have a little party tonight. Guys, be glad that we were right again. One day, it won't be just us in this small town patting ourselves on the back. Everyone will ask you, hey, do you know about Ripple? Do you guys know about XRP? We've been here since the beginning, and I think we'll be very proud of ourselves one day. Anyway, guys, thanks a lot for coming. I hope this update was fun for you. Please like and subscribe if you did.